This video is going to be about the most controversial thing in math, as far as I've heard. Like, the most well-known example of an undefined expression. And that is, of course, dividing by zero. These two expressions may look the same and have the same meaning, but they're actually quite different. Because any number divided by zero would be infinity, but in my opinion, when you do 0 divided by 0 on a calculator, it shouldn't be a divide by 0 error. It should be a different error, because these two are the opposites. Because I'll show you why in a second. Because 1 divided by 0 is where you have something like, let's just let this equal x. And let's multiply both sides by x. I mean 0, sorry. Multiplying both sides by 0. This gives you 1 equals 0. This is pretty funny. 1 does not equal 0, obviously. But if we plug in x, like even if we plug in x and we look at this, there's no solution for x because there's no number you can multiply by 0 to get 1. Because anything multiplied by 0 is 1. Like, even if you plugged in 6,666,666 into x, that will still bring it back to 0. That's why this one doesn't have a solution. Like, this one cannot be any number, because there's no number that if you multiply by 0, it gives you 1. So, no number fits this. So there's no real number for this. But what about 0 divided by 0? Well, this is basically the opposite of this one. Because if you take something like 0 divided by 0 equals x, multiply both sides by 0, you get 0 equals 0, which is true, but even if you plug in x for this, which you can do as a little addition, you realize that any number can fit x. So if you plugged in 1 for x, then it would make this equation true. But if you plugged in 65 for x, that will also give you this equation to be true. Even if you plugged in 1,355,555, it would still make this thing true. This thing can have any solution. Like, this can have any number to be true. So it's the complete opposite of this one. So this has an infinite number of solutions. That's pretty weird. Well, I think it's best to leave this one as undefined for now. Or maybe we can figure out some imaginary number that fits this, like, remember how the square root of 25 is 5, but the negative square root of 25 is negative 5. But the square root of negative 25 is undefined. Or is it? Well, we actually came up with a solution for this, and we introduced imaginary numbers into the mix, and then this would be 5i, and I is an imaginary number that equals the square root of negative 1. So, because we can use imaginary numbers here, we can maybe let 0 divided by 0 equal some imaginary number that represents all numbers, which reminds me a lot of infinity. So maybe 0 divided by 0 could be infinity. Or maybe it just could be the only real unsigned infinity, like it introduces, like it includes all negative and positive numbers. So we could just make this equal absolute infinity, which is the capital letter omega in the Greek alphabet. And one divided by 0 could also equal this, because not only does 1 divided by 0 not have a physical number solution, it's also approaching two numbers at once. So, like, for example, if you take 1 divided by 0.5, that gives you 2, and 1 divided by 0.1 is 10. 1 divided by 0.02 is 50. And how about 1 divided by 0.00001? That is 100,000. So this is approaching infinity. So that means that 1 divided by 0 would be infinity, right? Well, if you make these numbers negative, then it starts to come towards negative infinity. So wouldn't this equal negative infinity too? Well, that's another reason why it's undefined. So because these two infinities are representing a specific group of numbers, that could mean that there's multiple infinities. Like, one of these infinities could represent whole numbers, and another one could represent all numbers that are rational. So that would be a bigger set of infinity. But if we took all real numbers and all imaginary numbers and all the numbers you could possibly think of, then we could create absolute infinity, like as seen right here. So this could be a solution for 1 divided by 0, or 5 divided by 0, or 11 divided by 0. These all equal the same thing because they're approaching the same thing. So that's about it that I have to say for dividing by 0. And that's my proposal on what we should do for it. And another reason why it could be infinity is because dividing by 0 is repeated subtraction. So, like, if you take something like another thing like 10 divided by 0, or any number could work, but we're using this as an example. Because this is repeated subtraction, you do 10 minus 0 to get 10, and then do this minus 0 to get 10 again, and then this goes on forever. So there would be an infinite number of zeros here. So that makes that true. Because 10 divided by 5 is 2. You know that, right? Because 10 minus 5 is 5, and 5 minus 5 is 0. That took 2 subtractions to get to 0. So that would be 2. But there would be infinity in this case because you have an infinite number of zeros here. It extends like that. So that's another reason why I could expect it to be infinity. But other than that, that's about it that I can say for this.